a financial figurine, an income profit manifesting machine. The only value they said I have is green. They called me a fiction, they called me extreme. They called me a pimp, as a matter of fact. They painted me violent, they painted me black.
So I'm going to expand a little bit more on in propria persona. Basically representing yourself in your proper person. Sui juris, whatever it is that you're going to go in and have competence in yourself. You know your own story. You know your defense better than anybody. Not to mention, who wants to pay a lawyer $300-400 an hour for mediocre compassion, mediocre investment, and then mediocre conviction when they out supposedly pleading your case? So that's why any of us get to this point where we represent ourselves, look into things like in propria persona, pro se, sui juris, whatever it is, whatever the status you try to appear in, whether it's special appearance, general appearance. Those in the know, we try to appear special appearance so we don't give up our jurisdiction, waive jurisdiction, consent to jurisdiction. We want to remain on our square and stand strong while being honorable and acknowledge and come forth and recognize any valid claim against us. So, speaking on in propria persona and representing yourself, we're going to look at this quote real quick. Proverbs, a man who is his own lawyer has a fool for a client. Right? In other words, he who represents himself has a fool for a client. Meaning, you a sucker and you a damn fool if you're going to go into these courts representing yourself, think you're going to overcome the obstacles of the proper procedure, the paperwork, the dialect, the verbiage, the legalese, the lawful know-how, all of it, to try to represent yourself. It's like dentistry, they say, fool's someone that tries to do his own dentistry. So same kind of sentiment. So why do people get to that point where they do represent themselves, where they do in propria persona make special or general appearance? I can only speak in my own case, and that comes from being in family court in Oregon. I was in family court for a short period of time in Colorado, and I've stated in previous videos and acknowledged the difference of my experience within these two states and the respect and at least in the ballpark of some form of justice that I felt existed in Colorado, and the extreme, I don't even know what to call it, travesty of justice, abomination of due process, and just foundation of compassion and logic and intelligence and family values, especially in family court. All these things that were so drastically and continue to be drastically lacking in the Oregon courts, as well as any form of rights I feel I have as a human being, as a man, as a father, as a melanated, brown, indigenous American. I just feel whatever's going on in there, whether it's malicious, intentionally by design, or bureaucratic negligence and systematic failures at the highest level, too many cases, overworked. We can't say underpaid with these lawyers and judges, because that's pretty far from the truth in what these lawyers and judges are making, which is why at the end of the day I only got so much compassion for the negligence that's going on in there, and their workload, and the type of caseloads that they have family court dealing with. Hardships, I can't imagine the type of pain and blame and highs and mostly probably lows that people in this system have to face on a daily basis. That being said, that's what their passion is. That's what they went to study and went to put their life devotion into. So at the end of the day, kind of cry me a river, because you getting paid. These people are wealthy. Judges and lawyers travel the world, right? So, the hardship of your job, doesn't justify what I've gone through in the court system out there. So why represent yourself? One, my family paid in family court. This is my 4th summer. My daughter's going to be 3, 2017 right now. In those 4 summers, we've paid the lawyers and the court process almost $100,000. And so that's college education. That's a home free and clear in some parts of this country. Not where I'm at right now, but in some parts that's, security and investment back into yourself or your family and equity and, so you're not paying rent and just throwing money away. And so just my side, my family, in these 4 summers have paid almost $100,000 to end up with, as a father, 2% time, 4 weekends a year in Colorado, in my home state. I get 2%, mother gets 98% in Oregon, and that's supposed to be justice. That's supposed to be family values. That's supposed to be, apparently, the law. Like, the law is what they're saying is backing all this, and it's mind-boggling to me. It's offensive. I think it's cruel, and that's saying it lightly, whether some of these lawyers I've dealt with that are wicked, and I think they're just bad humans and the type of people that will put profit over people, especially when you're dealing with children. There's just no excuse. And then to have the judges move forward like it's, business as usual and not call out some of these behaviors and some of the conduct and the things that some of these lawyers say to get the edge and to defamate your character and try to win in a system that's set up to have these two sides pit against each other and have one side try to be victorious at the expense of the other side, which in family law it's unacceptable. There should be so many checks and balances making sure this doesn't happen. And so, in propria persona. So going from yourself as a father, as a mother, as a parent who's all of a sudden, thrown into the Shark Tank. Your life is already in one of the hardest places it could be with a failing relationship, much less discordance to end you up before the state. Things have to be pretty bad. And so at the hardest time in your life, then trying to have your center and your balance and your thoughts and emotions in check to go plead your case to a foreign system and a procedure that you've never dealt with, paperwork that is of the likes of what you have to do in masters, it gets your master's degree, like thesis paperworks to, obviously, that lawyers go to school for years and years to try to master and get experience and then get the know-how and the talent and the exposure and, the time with cases and cases and cases to then refine themselves and their intellect and understanding on specialized law, and as well as, the actual court procedure and oral arguments, presenting yourself to a judge, who goes first, who goes second, who's the petitioner, who the respondent is, right? And then the order that things go in so-called civilized arguing for recognition of the law and enforcement, so we can be babysat when ourselves and our families and our communions and our partnerships fail. And we got to turn to somebody else that rules through force and very little compassion. So why would you go in there and represent yourself and try to speak and sound articulate and present yourself like you know anything about the law, about what's right and wrong? A general good person, common sense, street smart, book smart, college smart, general intelligent people. When you have nothing to hide, I think that's where it starts, is I have nothing to hide. How hard can it be to come in and tell the truth, tell my side of the story, and have another intelligent third party, unbiased party, right, weigh in, that's trained and specialized in conflict resolution and lawful determination and whatever area that we're in before the court, in this case with my life, family court, that's where it starts. You'd think that wouldn't be that difficult. Even the paperwork. Listen, I'm an intelligent person. I got a bachelor's degree, made it through a 4-year college, right? I can write some basic papers. I'm not an idiot. You're going to know what I'm saying. I'm not going to ramble on. I mean, I'm very wordy, so I have to have people help me tame it down and prioritize the main points, which everyone should do, and that's what lawyers and these people train for years to do, is to articulate legalese into a proper procedure paper that can be motioned to the court. So to think you're going to jump in and wing that, most of us, it's unrealistic. Family courts know this. That's why they say you a fool if you represent yourself, if you try to come in here and do it yourself, because you're going to get chewed up and spit out, which is a shame, you know? Not because the law is so complex and the average person can't know what the law is, but because it's just come so far from morals and common sense, being able to have a little help to get evidence in, to speak clearly when you're nervous, your life's in shambles, right? Just a little help from the system, from compassionate people. But starting with the paperwork, you know, these courts are stringent. I've had paperwork after paperwork rejected. And I've had a lot of leniency in both states, Colorado and Oregon. But the bottom line is, you can get lost just in the paperwork. The amount of hardship that we've gone through just to get the responses and have the response time in check. You know, you got 3 days or 30 days or 21 days, whatever, to respond to different things, and you got to be on point, or you default and you lose. And these people don't care what happened, why your paperwork wasn't on time or correctly typed up. Okay? You just lose. It's cold, it's a machine, and it'll just roll over you. And so you have that done a couple times, and the stakes at hand are your kids, are your family, your livelihood, your beloveds. That's why most people crumble. The stress of that, of course, most people are going to be stressed, because it's just like death, the face of risking losing something that we have attachment to in this world. Those ones that we love the most is some of the most difficult points in walking this planet. And that's what you face in family court, especially as a father, especially as a man, with these statistics of how many of us get reduced to a number. Child support. Our value gets reduced to a monetary calculation. How demeaning is that? How do you hold your head up and have healthy pride when you've been reduced to a monthly number, while you're being denied the ability to physically care and provide for your children, for your beloved, much less just enjoy, teach, pass down your culture, your style, your you. They eliminate these people. They eliminate fathers. They eliminate mothers too. But not at the rate that we know that they're doing with the fathers, with the child support, much less when you get into the welfare, Title 4D, and it's crazy. And then the incentive to stay on welfare, then you're going to be penalized if you get a job and if mothers start to contribute. And then we got all these paradoxes. Third wave feminism wanting equality, you know, while women are saying they can't work the same as a man after you bear children together. And I think the gender dynamics are different. I don't think it should be the same. I don't think women should go back to work after they bear children. Like, that's one of the most difficult, courageous, amazing, metaphysical, transformative things a human being can do. That's why we revere our women. That's why we revere that process of creating life that builds nations. That's why the woman is held at such high prestige, not at the detriment of the men, at the recognition of the value of woman, of the womb, of manifestation. That's divine, right? You get from that to now how we treat males in these family courts. And it's like, what is going on here? I get duality, but yin yang, this isn't about good evil in the sense of male female. That's silly. There's duality, there's polarity, right? And vibration of life, but that manifestation into these family courts of men being reduced to a financial status with debt currency, fiat currency, fake money to begin with, and all the contradictions of the Constitution and needing to pay debt with silver and gold, and yet that we know there's no money. There's no money left in America. There's no silver and gold. There's no lawful money. All there is now is promissory notes. And yet they want to hustle, and act like then when those of us that start to study and look at what's going on and then question, and then we talk to these lawyers, and the lawyers, they don't want to recognize any of the stuff that we study and that we see all these street lawyers and jailhouse lawyers and just independent fathers and family self-taught educated human beings that are smart. And we see this huge gap and ravine between what we go and study and then what the lawyers are going to say and what they tell us and how they try to tone us down and belittle our sentiments, and much less belittle the impact that it has just going through this, losing your children. My daughter's 3 and I've had almost no time with her. That's crazy. These are the most developmental points in children's lives, to have your child removed from you in that time where they do the most bonding, where they do some of the most brain expansion and mind expansion and conceptualized integration of the child, the amazement that is children that happens in that time. That's what we're robbed of as men. That's insane. I don't think we understand the damage and the holes in the hearts of some of these men that have gone through this and had their children ripped away. And as a generalized expression of a body politic that doesn't really been that nurtured and successful in expressing pain and hardships in general. And now they're going through this and there's no support system set up. And there's men that feel uncomfortable, just that they feel emasculated and demeaned. And it's hard to be proud, and that's some features of being a man. And then they're demonized, as the culture right now that we see that demonizes male tendencies and testosterone tendencies and the ways those manifest in the divine masculine, the protectors. Somehow that's been flipped to be turned into such a shunned and shamed entity. Okay, and so the way this lack of love and compassion for men then starts to manifest is generalized conceptions that men don't need protection, that men don't need love, that men don't want love, right? And in family courts, I feel like we see this then materialized into the current laws that then extremely favor, bias, protect women and shun, shame, cast doubt and suspicion on men. And we have to get into melanated, brown, indigenous men as well, because I think that escalates everything. Being a brown male, the fear-based history in this country speaks for itself. And think and act like that's not a factor in every court system and in every judgment and interpretation, not just of the law, but of your testimony and your presentation and oral arguments in propria persona. Of course, these people can't be completely objective. We're foolish to think they are. That's as foolish as the man who thinks he should represent himself, is to think these people don't have extreme biases and prejudice. And that's why, in my opinion, we need to get back to juries and family courts. Why can we not have juries of our peers? The amount of power in one person, that's scary. I don't know if you European people have ever been in a room of just brown, melanated people, mostly men. Imagine that. You're the only white person in there. And these people are going to judge you, and they got the fate of your family and your future and your economics in their hand, in the power of one hand. That's what it's like. That's not like woe is me. I'm just saying that's a reality. That would make anybody uncomfortable. Of course we would question if it's going to be fair and objective, if there's not people that look like us, that sound like us, that value what we value, that represent our culture, our family values. I don't think I'm from Mars, but I wonder what the family values that all these laws and statutes and these judges and attorneys represent. If that's them for real, and this is what they value, that they would say for a 3-year-old child that they only should have 4 weekends a year with their paternal side of the family. And that it's okay to remove any gender from a child that age to that extreme for 357 days of the year. I don't know people like that. I don't know families like that. That it's like so roles reversed. If that was you and you were in this position being taken to court and your relationship failed, or there was discordance and disagreement to such an extent that you can't find balance and harmony and a meeting of the minds and peace and cooperative focus for what you're going to aim for your children and putting children first, and you can't accomplish that. Now roles reversed, and then you got to go to the system and the state. You're going to say you would be okay with, as a man? That's what's wild, because it's all men in there, white men. And so as white men, like their prejudice against me as a man, that's wild. That's how I feel. You put yourself in those shoes, you're going to be okay with your children being removed for 357 days of the year? That you would feel that's justice and healthy? I mean, we had psychologists involved in doing evaluations. And these are trained, right? People that have their doctorate in psychology. And in their opinion, that's okay, that ratio. Most people, I'm sure, watching a video like this, you don't know me. Like, did I do something to, warrant that type of separation? I have no convictions. In this case, with this woman, I had a protection order restraining her from me. That means nothing in that system out there in Oregon. That's wild to me. That's gender discrimination right there. As a woman, if you have a protection order restraining a man, you know how serious they take that? Violations, those men end up in jail immediately. No questions asked. You skip go, you go straight to jail. And in my situation, it's like, that's how the lawyers treated it too. Like, what's the big deal? You're a man. Like, what are you that worried about? Which gets into the abuse video that I did. Male abuse versus female abuse. Can females be abusive? You better believe it. When a woman lets herself, and when any human lets themselves in your home without permission repeatedly, when they start aggressive confrontation and bring the children in and fight in front of children and get violent. It doesn't matter what your gender is. There has to be basic ways to deal with this. And in my experience, when it came to being on the male side, receiving end of a female who had no boundaries and her conduct was unacceptable, it's, in my opinion, treated completely different. Not with the same seriousness and protective nature that I've seen them bend over backwards to do for her. And so that's a problem. So that's like two sides, right? Representing yourself, being a man in these family courts where you're already set up for failure. I couldn't imagine being a woman either, though, representing myself in these courts, because they're so hard on you. But when things are more statistically set to go in your favor and have some of these biases that I feel like I've seen, I'd probably rather be a woman if I have the intelligence capacity that I have, and I'm as educated as I am and intuitive as I am and commonsensical as I feel that I am. Then I probably feel the odds are in my favor as a woman and try to do more representing of myself. When she represented herself here in Colorado, and in my opinion, her representation was crazy. It followed no procedure. And the amount of respect and patience and flexibility that the judge awarded her, while I still feel like being lawful and having due process, I feel like it was in the ballpark of just trying to help. And she lost. And was treated very respectfully. That's why I have this difference in opinion from Colorado to Oregon. Now, in Oregon, I've had hearings where they shut me down. They don't even let me admit any evidence. And then you got to deal with worrying about objecting to the judge and challenging a judge who, a lot of them have fragile egos. They'll say they don't and swear up and down like, you know, they're so prestigious and have dealt with so many issues of conflict and people that surely resent them, and I'm sure I brush it off and conduct myself with the utmost professionalism and dignity. But it's not true. They're humans. I've seen them, in my case, be way out of line in Oregon, be completely thin-skinned, when they just should be there to mediate procedure and let people argue for a jury of their peers, of mixed men, women, mixed cultures, mixed races, mixed ideologies, right? I know my situation will be so very different. I can't imagine a community of people that's their conclusion. That's the order they're going to give, is split up a child like that. 2% to one parent, 98% to the other. I think that's only happening with these judges that are so systematically ingrained in their process and so detached. I get it, in medical professions, like they have to detach to some degree. In psychology and counseling, they have to detach from their patients so they're not so invested in taking everything home to their family, everybody else's problems. But you can't be a robot. That's ridiculous. That's the other extreme. We can't go from one extreme of too emotionally invested and attached to the other extreme where you're a damn robot. You don't show any compassion in family courts for the hardship for people that are in propria persona, pro se, representing themselves, that did the paperwork and did it damn well, and it looks good and you know what they're saying. You're still riding them hard like they should be at the standard of lawyers, when really you should be acknowledging how much work and time and conviction that they must have as somebody to go and do all that work, whether they have the money to pay for an attorney or not. But especially the ones who aren't financially well off and do that out of necessity. You're going to give them a hard time and act like you're put out because they're doing procedure a little off from the mechanical flow that you're used to. as though that's what life is, a bunch of right angles, left brain thinking. That's crazy, as though science is a bunch of right angles and left brain thinking, and most of science isn't applied science, and it's really shifting and transforming and changing with the times and the mentality and the observer and what we're putting into life as developing and changing consciousness. And we know how much changes in life, and that's why law changes and morals changes and social constructs and cultures and governments and all of it continues to grow. And these people sit in there like they're put out because they got somebody new with the same thing in a different way, because everybody's family's drama is going to be a little bit different, even though some of the fundamentals, of course, are the same. But you have to come and be present, just like we do as humans, as members of society. Be present with our neighbors. Be present when we walk out the door, when we go to our job or our job or our true work and our passion, which we're hopefully doing, our sole purpose, so that we're living vibrant and with enthusiasm. If we lived life and we see people walking around with that type of mentality that are super drab and ultra serious, take themselves too serious and you too serious, and are so ready to be on edge and explode, and don't smile and don't take deep breaths and don't look you in the eyes for more than a second and then look right away, right? Acknowledge your presence as a human, as a co-creator with them. Am I crazy? That's crazy to think that should be in courts. That's how judges should be. That's how lawyers should be. That lawyers that are doing shit just to have, strategy and tactics, playing with deadlines and things that are trying to throw you off your square, throw you off your emotional balance and your emotional center, antagonizing you, being argumentative, right? Things that you literally have to object yourself to have that judge weigh in and, be like, yeah, we probably should act like intelligent, civilized, compassionate, loving, proactive, intentional, authentic, accountable beings. Right? They sit up there like the angry Christian school teacher from 1947. It's 2017. Right? And I gotta be nervous about acting like I think there's some racial factors in there. To call out a judge on anything. That's why the lawyers won't do it. They're not gonna represent how you feel, the type of discrimination you feel, whatever your makeup is. Because I promise you, everybody that goes into Babylon system, 90% plus, I'm sure, feel done dirty. Feel like they didn't get justice. And justice is a hard thing to come by. I'm not saying and trying to minimize the manifestation of ma'at, of true justice, of having that balance in life. There's a reason the world's in so much chaos. I'm not belittling what it takes to have yourself in balance and yourself in order, much less your partnerships, and then your family, and then our community, and our blocks, and then our culture and society, and our nations, right? It's a hard thing, but it starts with self. And when you're present and in the moment, it makes it that much easier. When you're humble enough to be accountable for the amount of ignorance you have and the amount of growth that you still have left to do, no matter what your age and your makeup and your schooling. We're all ignorant as hell about most of life. Go talk to the kid down the street that you've never spent time with. He's going to have a million things that you know nothing about. You may think they're goofy and silly, but go into another culture and talk to them. They're going to have a million things that are on par with whatever your social, mental, philosophical construct is that you know nothing about, that we're ignorant about. We always have room to grow. That's why it's hard going into these courts with people that act like they're not hella fallible, coming in days where they're grumpy, that they got a chip on their shoulder and it's going to impact somebody's whole life. Right? That's why we have more people to hold us accountable. That's why juries are so essential, because we got more than one person. If 2 jury members are hangry because they haven't eaten and now they're angry as hell and their judgment is skewed, we got the other 11, whatever, however many in our jury, grand jury, fake jury, little jury, kangaroo court jury, whatever these juries, we need some amount of people, but we'll have some other people in there to keep these people in check. Be like, maybe you need a Snickers so you can get yourself in check and get your mind back on the prize, because we're dealing with people's lives and we're affecting their whole families. And we need to take this very serious and be compassionate and have simple solutions. Be productive. So we're not just punishing people, we're treating them like we would want our own family to be treated. We don't just want to punish people, throw them in prison and throw away the key. Turn our brothers and our fathers and our sons into a financial equation. Child support is money. That's crazy. We need to humanize it all, so that when people do come in propria persona, they're encouraged. Why? Because it's dumb to spend $100,000 as a man fighting for time and love and interaction and protection with your children to get 2% time to get 4 weekends a year. I could have saved that money. I could have spent nothing. That would be humane to tell me, listen, you're not going to get anything. Save your money. We don't give men shit. Okay? Males in America, males in Oregon, I don't know if it's just an Oregon thing, because I've already said I think Colorado is doing it very different. I've only been to a few here, but it's different. My experience here was different. But in Oregon, I don't care where it is, anywhere that would give one parent 2% time, we need people to understand what's happening in this country. That's kidnapping. That's taking people's children away. It's unacceptable. You have to have a good reason to take somebody's child away. For the state to do it, for a parent to be unfit, they got to be smoking rock, burning the kids damn near, have nothing in the fridge before CPS even does nothing. But to be unmarried, to be a single man that had a child, you can call my child a bastard, the bastardy laws, right? That's where they gave the men everything, and that went in the tender years doctrine, which now gives the women everything. Extremes, one way or the other. Bring it back to the middle. We got to bring it back to center. That's where the balance is. And it's not hard to see when there's balance, because there's compassion there. There's love there. It's not about homogeny. It's not about getting rid of all diversity. It's about respecting the diversity, respecting the male principle, respecting the female principle, knowing what those principles are and honoring them, valuing them. I value the female principle and I value the male principle. It's just hard as hell in the world, in this country, in America, in Oregon, Clackamas County, to feel like I'm not valued at all. That there's no value to anything I could contribute that's worth protecting, and worth, making solidified with the court order, so I have equal time to share my customs and culture and verbiage and dialect. I say, what if I was Mexican and I spoke Spanish? My child wouldn't know Spanish. I'm indigenous, so my child should know Hotep and Ashe, right? My child should know what an Inipi is, the Chanupa. But my child doesn't know any of those things, because I don't get to share my culture and who I am, my paternal influence with my child. How can we justify that? We can't. That's why we stand against it. That's why I make these videos. And that's why I try to help understand what I went through in Propria Persona, having both had an attorney and representing myself, what I've had to overcome. I think if people are in the same position and they're trying to do it, it helps to have a support system. And so I want to put as much about my experience out there so that people don't have to reinvent the wheel, so that men don't have to go through what I went through. And that doesn't mean that the court you're going into is going to do what they've done to me. I don't know how common this is. 2% time, 4 weekends a year. That's crazy. But I don't know enough. That's why I feel like in the YouTube age and social media age, that's why it's important to put my private business out there, and so we can start having the conversation to see exactly how often and how much this is happening. I'm passionate about how much this is happening to men. I know men that got holes in their hearts and their souls. And in life, you don't get to just damage people and not give a fuck about people and forget about them and kick them to the side. If you don't know what happens when you do that to people in society, then you don't have a lot of life experience, and you need to come to the city and go to the hood or go to somewhere where you can see real life, where people that have been neglected and forgotten about, and you don't care about them, what happens, right? We impact each other. Ubuntu. I am because you are. And so, of course, that's why we have morality. That's why we try to be good people. I'm not with the Machiavellian principle, the prince. I'm not with the society. You have to be dirty and shady and the 48 principles of law, or the laws of power, 48 laws of power. Whatever it is, 48 laws of power, I think is what it is. And you look at that, that's the Machiavellian principle. That's how many of those laws are really what you see the so-called elite and the Illuminati and those ones that we think have no conscience doing. That's why in court, a lawyer that will lie and doesn't care about the truth, will do whatever he has to do to win. There's advantage to that. That's what I've learned in this family process, is like, dang, you want to win? If you want your child, it's probably advantageous to not be honest, to get a lawyer who's a bulldog, who's ready to do whatever, and pay out the ass and get them to go do what they do and fight to win. War, right? The art of war. That's why the 48 laws of power, that's why they have that. Because they're like, you, in the same sense, you're a fool to represent yourself. You're a fool to think you can be a good human and go be honest and try to take the high road and think you're not going to get your throat slit. Because there's people out there, and the majority of people out there are ready to cut your throat. And they'll deal with the consequences in the afterlife, because they really have no spiritual foundation that, karma's just a word to them. That's how my situation in this is. Like, I don't even think the attorney has any spiritual beliefs. And the mother to do that, like I've already said, I'm not going to spend time bashing. I wish her the best. That's all I can do. People that I understand to that little of a degree, just resort back to maybe I'm ignorant. Maybe there's something I don't see. I think there's wickedness in this world, and so I speak my voice and I try to stand in opposition to that. I think apathy in this world is not the path. I don't think that's the red road. I don't think that's the right road. If you're walking and you see a little baby being abused, you do something. And you do something because we judge the world, and we judge things as right and wrong. And if I see somebody doing a child dirty like that, I'm going to intervene. I'm going to protect that baby. I'm going to protect anybody that's being injured unrightfully. Because we're here to take positions, have contrasts to help us define what it is we want. The greatest, grandest vision of who we are and what we want to be. And we try to do that humbly. So, trying to bring this back to some point about impropria persona and representing yourself, it's a hard road. That's why we need to network together. That's why we need to be showing up to these courts, looking these judges and these lawyers in the eye. You know, when we have a lawyer say what my opposing counsel said, it's not about sibling time, it's about parenting time. We don't care if the two sisters have any time together. We're just going by the literal linguistics of the law. It's about parenting time. You don't need to even bring your daughter into this picture. We see somebody say something like that, that's wicked. Who talks like that about children? That's why when I don't hear judges pipe in when they hear a human being say that's about to affect and impact so greatly the entire future of a family, that's why I start to get suspect. I'm like, is that negligence, or who really sits there and lets people speak with such little reverence and value for children and for families and parents going through hardship? Like, it's mind-boggling to me, to where it's changed my life, and I need some answers, and I need people doing things. I need more people at my hearings. I need more people at any hearing that has people with this much power acting in this manner. So I bring awareness first and foremost by saying this is my experience. When I was in Oregon courts, I was dumbfounded by what they call justice, and the bias, and the discrimination, and the prejudice, and the privilege that mothers got. Both sides. It's something that I feel if the world knew about, that's why I'm like, blast them all. Let's bring in cameras into these hearings so everyone can see. I don't have nothing to hide. It's only shifty, it truly is, if you got something to hide. And I'm not for the Orwellian, let's put cameras everywhere. I'm up for get out of my business and let's shoot all these cameras down. You got no business being in my life. I'll deal with the so-called barbarism in this world face to face. I don't need a protector. I trust in my people, in my community. So get out of our lives. This ain't about let's record all our lives. I'm just saying, why? Because the people with power, that's why we don't want them looking into our lives. Because the more snoopy they get, the more thought crime and all that they try to pretend like they need to regulate. And then you have what we see happen in every culture, where Big Brother gets bigger and bigger, and the cops get more militant, and they shoot black males and on TV, and nothing even happens. That's how you get here, right? People want to be protected, and it's all in the name of we got nothing to hide, so we give up our liberties and our freedoms and your guns and all that. So that's 8 million topics in one video about impropria persona and represent yourself. But I digress. I want to keep doing videos on impropria persona and the things we've tried so we know what not to do. We can't give legal advice. This isn't legal advice. I think that's goofy. This is for educational purposes only. I'm not a lawyer. We get it. Everybody says that. Seriously? Like, because we're worried about a lawsuit, and now people are worried about sharing ideas and the flow of ideas because you can't give legal advice. It starts to become absurd when you can't use common sense and differentiate from malice. Not to mention when you have all these lawful, supposedly, allegedly licensed attorneys who act shadier than the majority of the body politic of the average person out there. And you let that happen every day. And look at us like we're going to be prosecuted if we talk law with each other. Give me a break. That's the freedom of speech. We should be talking about everything and being critical of everybody, of the system, of the government, of the left wing and the right wing and the center wing. All sides we should be critiquing. And then we should critique ourselves and be humble and authentic enough to put who we are on the table so we can look at our contradictions, start to heal who we are, stop to be so hypocritical, right? All these judges and the lawyers, they're so hypocritical. And it's like, come to the table and bring that to the table. Because then you'll have more compassion and humility when you're judging me. Because you know we're going to be in the ballpark of reality. And you're not using these crazy standards that we know most people aren't living up to in general. So we got to start differentiating that nobody's perfect. But that's different than when some people are really wicked and when they do real damaging injury. That's not what's happening in most of these family courts. These are just families that are falling apart. They need love and compassion and strength and security in a system that's going to not let it totally disintegrate into War of the Worlds. You're not supposed to be throwing fuel on the fire. You're supposed to be elevating and uplifting. The people of the highest character should be in these judges' positions. Alchemists. Love revolutionaries. That's what I want in there, some love revolutionaries. That speak real, keep it real. I'm not saying softies. That's not what an elder is supposed to be, a softie. An elder, a wise one, keeps it real, speaks it as it is, and their demeanor, their nature, their energy, and their vibration is such that everybody demands respect from everybody. That's how you get the title of Your Honor. You don't get to tell me to call you Your Honor. You get the title Your Honor because the community puts you in that position. That's how a chief gets titled. That's how an elder gets titled, as having wisdom and wise counsel. You prove that. You don't tell me that you are that. Expect me to give you that benefit of the doubt. And that's what these judges and attorneys, that's how they come at you. So pompous. That's not what indigenous culture would be. That's not what the round table, the true circle, the council of elders would be. That's not what unitive justice is. So we need to humanize these hearings. We need to humanize these judges. And if that means we need to humanize the law, that the law has gotten so off balance that the heart no longer exists, that morality isn't there, it's just principles for better or for worse, then we need to change that from the ground up. So I don't know if that's coming in propria persona, representing yourself in a way that these attorneys refuse to, so that you speak from the heart. Now you got to do your work. You got to do due diligence and come in sounding on point. And that's hard to do because they want you to come in acting like it's all good and it's your best day ever and showing your best face when you're the most nervous you've ever been, facing people you don't know anything about in a system that's designed to judge you. And you're supposed to speak calm and collected and not stutter and have your T's crossed and your I's dotted, right? And sound good. That's hard. That's hard, period. We're not professional speakers. We're not motivational speakers, but you need to come in and motivate this judge with your charisma and your intelligence and your facts. You got to have your facts on point. Something to admit besides just your oral testimony, my word versus their word. You need to be articulate, not just in court, but in life. That's why families are so important. That's why bringing the education back to the parents in general for our children and not putting 100% of the responsibility on public or private or charters or the Montessoris or any of these schools, letting somebody else raise your kids that you don't know nothing about. That's what raising children is. That's what child support is. Supporting your children through each developmental stage of their consciousness from 0 up and riding that wave with them because you're going to grow too. And that's the juxtaposition, right? Oh my God, you're going to teach me so much and I'm still trying to teach you and be your elder. While a young soul, a fresh mind is going to expand my horizons like I never thought. That's balance. And when parents do that, that's not hard to see for these family courts. It doesn't take that much time to see what parents really have compassion and passion for their children, for the family unit, for the right to procreate and pass your seed and who you are and your culture and your values and beliefs, as long as you don't injure that child or other people in the process, it doesn't take a lot of work to do. That doesn't even take like a deep, deep level of intuitiveness. You don't need to be an empath to do that. You don't need to be a psychic. You just need to be fairly exposed to humans, to life, to what that looks like. And when you see people like that, you don't strip them of their right to raise and enjoy and teach and care for their children. And that's what's happening to men. And it's a travesty. And we gotta stop it. That's where my life is right now. I just need my life back. But I feel like I gotta keep fighting. But I'm in a system that doesn't value me. In Clackamas and Oregon, they do not value me. That speaks by their actions. When you value somebody, it looks a certain way. You sound a certain way. You speak a certain way. Right? I haven't seen any of that. And I'm a good man. I challenge anybody. You want to come get to know me? Come get to know me. I'll spend time sharing my story with you, telling you who I am and putting facts to my testimony if that's what it takes to prove I'm a good man, that I've not done anything wrong that the average good person doesn't do when they stumble in this life. And I certainly deserve and want all the time that is owed to me, that is my right, my God-given right, the right of the Creator, the right as myself as a God and a Creator on this earth, just as a mother, as a God and a Creator on this earth, or a goddess for my new females that need the goddess acknowledged. I acknowledge you, so acknowledge me, stand with me. Let's bridge the gaps. Let's support each other, love each other, grow with each other, help each other build into better people, into better unions, better families, better cultures, better societies, and ultimately, better nations. Know your nationality, know thyself, love yourself, and love the world. Peace and love. My name is MCAD, aka Rad Dad. We gotta change these family courts and spread love to the world. Let's manifest our highest intentions and be good to ourselves and be good to those we cross our paths with. One love. Holla!
It's all coming together right here now. It's all coming together right here now. It's all coming together right here. Who's that? It's love. Can you feel it coming through that conscious revolutionary music? Yeah, you can feel it in your veins.
Hey, give thanks for those who donated and ask for ways to donate and support and help the cause. I set up a PayPal account for donations, so if you want to donate, you can do so at lovefurpapa@gmail.com. That's our PayPal account, and that's love, the number 4, POPPA@gmail.com. If you got $1 to spare, every dollar helps. We just want to say thank you to those who have supported in every way that they have. Peace and love.